Hello, people. Finished a book, Letters of Alexander von Humboldt, written 1827-1858 to Varnhagen von Entz, together with extracts from Varnhagen's diaries and letters of Varnhagen and others to Humboldt. This is a cool book. People back then, man, in the 18th and 19th century, I think that was the epitome of mankind, actually. They wrote letters. Humboldt wrote thousands of letters. Just their vocabulary and their style of writing. And yes, I fully realize that not everybody did that. The vast swath of the population wasn't doing any of that. But, you know, the politicians and the great men of that era, I don't know a whole lot about Varnhagen. I did Google him and look at the little wiki article. But I have read a biography of Humboldt. He was an amazing character. It was a pretty cool book. These books, this thing's hard as a rock, very uncomfortable to hold. We have a few more of them here, none of them that I'm interested in. I have one at the cabin called In the Lena Delta. And In the Lena Delta was part of my Arctic exploration. You know, I'm not done with that, obviously. I'll still read that. But I read In the Lena Delta, and an amazing discovery in there. I'm going to try and tell this story really quickly. My dad would always tell me that there was a famous man with the same last name as me, as us, and he was in the German Navy. And somehow my dad got the thing mixed up. This famous man was supposed to have made an open boat voyage in the North Sea. It ends up that it was like a cruiser that they sent, or a destroyer that they sent to rescue the guys that were stuck in the Lena Delta. I know I'm not talking about this book at all, but had the same last name as we do. And I think that's how he got mixed up somehow. I almost bought the book that the guy had written, the guy with the same last name as me. He was the captain of a United States naval vessel. But they had only printed like 50 of them. The book was over $300, so I didn't get it. Anyways, let's get back to this book. This was a cool book. I'm going to get to my notes because this is my third time trying to make this fucking video. My phone keeps shutting off because it says I'm out of storage space. I have deleted everything I know how to delete. This book was published in 1860. You know, shortly after Varnhagen and Humboldt had died. There's a big long preface there justifying publishing this, because a lot of people apparently thought they shouldn't have. 316 pages. Metternich writes letters to Humboldt, the King of Denmark, Frederick Wilhelm IV. Some of the letters, Napoleon III, some of the letters are reproduced here in French, and I can't read them. I know that Humboldt and Varnhagen wrote in German, so they translated them. Why not the French ones? It kind of sucked. Lots of footnotes in here. Every time somebody's name is mentioned, they give me a nice little story in the footnote. I read all the footnotes. There's a guy named Prescott who writes, and that's on page 125. I should remember, because I've already read this. The liberal principles on which the literary institutions are conducted in Prussia, and the facilities given to men of letters, together with the known courtesy of the German character, lead me to anticipate no obstacles to the execution of my desires. Should there be any, however, you will confer great favor on me by giving your countenance to my applications. Prescott was a great historian, one of the first American historians, and he wanted some information from the archives in Prussia. And I I thought that was interesting because that's the way Americans used to think about Germans. Not anymore, not after the two wars. There's tensions between Humboldt and Queen Victoria and Prince Albert. There's a couple of letters in here from Prince Albert. Humboldt was tortured by people trying to convert him to be a more religious person. And I'm not sure if Humboldt was a dyed-in-the-wool atheist, but he was at least an agnostic, and I think the Queen and the Prince were very religious. More religious than they make it seem. Me and my wife watched that show, Victoria, and they don't dwell on that at all in that show. Bottom of page 234 and 235. Looks like I might be able to make it through this without the phone shutting down. Humboldt was very anti-slavery, and he liked the United States. He admired the Americans, but every time he wrote anything about them, he would always go back to the slavery thing. Buchanan was the president when this was written, and he's got bad things to say about Buchanan. In the United States, a great deal of good feeling has certainly sprung up for me, but the general aspect of affairs there leaves me under the sad impression that liberty in that country is but a dead machinery in the hands of utilitarianism, very little calculated to ennoble and rouse the powers of mind and heart, which, after all, ought to be the main object of political freedom. This explains their indifference to slavery. But the United States are a Cartesian vortex, carrying away and leveling everything to dull monotony. That's the way he writes. Thank you for watching. I am into another book.